So thanks to everybody for being here with us today for our regular media briefing. Overall, the school year has gotten off to a great start. It's been wonderful to hear the stories and see screenshots of students interacting with each other and with their teachers. We definitely had some glitches our very first day of school last week. We had an Excel power outage that impacted 6,000 homes. And so we know there have been definitely some bumps in the road, but it's wonderful to see our students and teachers interacting with each other again. I wanted today to start off highlighting some of our efforts around defining what culturally relevant curriculum looks like, particularly for our Black and Indigenous students. We have recently combined our curriculum and instruction team with our culturally responsive education team to create a new team together called the Culturally Sustaining Curriculum and Instruction Department. This is so important for us to be able to live and teach our values of equity as a school district. We want to support our Black and Indigenous students and students of color in understanding their history, being able to see themselves in what they are learning, and to celebrate all of our rich diversity. It's something that is particularly meaningful for me. I can trace my decision to becoming a teacher directly to experiences I had outside of K-12 in the very first opportunities I had to see myself, my own culture in work that I was reading in college. That is what inspired me to become a teacher, and I know how meaningful it was for me and how critically important it is for our students to be able to see a larger world as well as their own lives reflected in the work that they're reading. For ECE, we're really excited to begin to welcome back our youngest learners starting next week with our ECE centers. During this pandemic, we have prioritized meeting the unique needs of our youngest learners, and we've worked really hard to develop procedures and protocols to safely welcome them back into their classrooms. We are asking families to decide by September 14th whether or not they plan to send their preschoolers to in-person learning this year. We know that many of our families have been anxiously awaiting this, and we are sharing all of the updates around our health and safety protocols, including things like staggered start times so that we can limit the number of students who are coming in at a single time, health checks before kids come in, including temperature checks, checking to make sure that students are feeling well, don't have any new symptoms, hand washing protocols, sanitizing, and efforts that will keep both our students and our staff healthy and safe. I want to share an update around learning centers. Schools now have the option to start hosting remote learning support centers that provide in-person support during remote learning starting after Labor Day. These remote learning support centers will give students the opportunity to be in a safe environment while they participate in their remote classes, making sure that they're able to connect to reliable internet and having the support of DPS staff on hand who can help them with those efforts. We also are really excited to announce the creation of a return to school and health dashboard that we've been working on. There's been a lot of interest in how we can make decisions that safeguard the health and safety while helping guide return to school efforts. And so we want to make sure that the community has a clear sense of the health conditions that we track. Denver Health has built a dashboard for DPS based on 3 critical health metrics that were identified by the Metro Denver Partnership for Health as the most important things for school districts to monitor. So the metrics that we are tracking are the number of COVID cases in Denver County using a 2-week average of the number of cases per 100,000. The trend in COVID cases, whether or not those trends are rising or falling, and the degree to which they are rising or falling, and the percent of positive COVID tests in Denver County, which distinguishes between increases in testing and increases in coronavirus transmission within our community. Anyone can access this dashboard called the COVID Conditions and Readiness Indicator directly from our homepage. So would love to be able to open it up for any questions that you may have for us.
Perfect, thank you. Our first question is from Melanie at Chalkbeat. Is it up to individual school leaders to decide whether to host a learning center? How many students could each learning center accommodate and who would staff them?
Yeah, so thank you, Melanie. So we are working with school leaders on standing up our remote learning support centers. We are staffing them to be able to host up to 10% of a school's population. Every school is working on the criteria for bringing students back in. We've talked about the priority groups being students who need access to reliable internet, students who are English learners, students with disabilities where more support is necessary. In elementary schools, some of our younger students where remote learning is significantly challenging for working parents as well.
Thank you. And from Teeny with the Denver Post, any update about bringing younger kids back to school earlier than October? Which ages and grade levels are you considering? And when is your target date to get them back in school?
Yeah, so thank you. Something that we think is really critically important, particularly while the health and safety conditions support this. So we are actively working on what a slow gradual return would look like. We knew that we wanted to begin with ECE given the challenges with remote learning for 3 and 4-year-olds. We are now beginning to turn our attention to how we can look at a gradual return for other grades as well, including thinking about the remote learning support centers and potentially accelerating the timeline for other students. We have definitely heard from families the importance of this and are working really hard to do this in a safe way.
Thank you. If you have any other questions, go ahead and pose them in the chat. Follow up from with the Denver Post. Personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies. How much of each have you ordered? What are you planning to supply for schools? Have you received these orders on time?
Yeah, so thank you. So our commitment is to always have a 7 to 10 day supply on hand of PPE and cleaning equipment. All teachers will receive 2 reusable cloth masks, an additional KN95 mask per week that the state of Colorado is providing to all educators, 2 face shields, a plexiglass divider. There are additional plexiglass dividers for all of our front offices, as well as an assortment of plexiglass dividers that can be used for students, particularly in the event there are students who, for a medical reason, may not be able to wear a mask. As a reminder, we are asking that all of our students, including our preschoolers, use masks unless they are eating, napping for our young children, or on a designated mask break, which will generally happen outdoors to help maintain the health and safety guardrails. We're also ordering 2 masks, reusable cloth masks for all of our students, in addition to the cleaning supplies that meet all of the licensing requirements for our ECE classrooms, as well as disinfecting materials for all of our schools. As a reminder to our families, our commitment is to clean all high-touch areas in schools 3 times a day at minimum, in addition to disinfecting every evening to make sure that the room conditions are sanitary and safe for students and staff.
Great, thanks. Melanie from Chalkbeat's asking, when can families expect to hear if a learning center will open at their school, and how do they sign up?
Yeah, so thank you, Melanie. So our schools will be working on the communications with their communities around that, particularly as we approach the week of Labor Day, so families can look for communication directly from their schools around the availability of that.
Thanks. Jenny with CPR, what will the rules be regarding posting positive COVID cases once schools return? Other districts in Colorado have not been consistent. On the other hand, some districts in other states post stats on their website.
Yeah, so thank you. We have made a commitment to share with a school community anytime that there is a case. We're working really hard, and I know that at the state level, there's evolving guidance around the rules for quarantining students, particularly thinking about what close contact means and how we can ensure safe protocols for people within a building. In secondary, that might look like using seating charts so that we actually can determine if there is a positive case where people are sitting in proximity to students so that quarantines can be used most effectively to be able to do that. So we will be communicating with our schools in the event of positive cases that have been happening. We've been doing that along the way already, and want to assure our families that our goal is to be as transparent as possible and to make sure that we're taking all of the safety protocols around keeping people healthy and safe.
Thank you. Another question with a post. Have there been any cases in DPS already?
Yeah, so thank you. We have had cases where either staff members or coaches, for example, both have been exposed to people and have gone into quarantine, and a very small number of cases where people have tested positive. We are using COVID check, which allows all of our employees who are school-based to be tested twice a month. And in addition to that, all other employees in the district in support teams outside of schools can access COVID check on a regular basis. We've had very low numbers, and obviously it's really important that we are all getting checked so that we can, as quickly as possible, contain any exposure to people with positive cases.
Thank you. And Melanie asks about the dashboard. Do all of the indicators need to be green to reopen schools fully?
Yeah, so thank you. So we've been working really closely with Denver Health on how to interpret the dashboard. And so on a weekly basis, we have a meeting where we review the dashboard and review the guidelines around safely reopening schools. It is not required that all indicators be green to safely open, but we have had conversations about if any single indicator moves to red, how we use that as a trigger to consider how we can either safely be in school with more aggressive measures to contain COVID, or if that is a call to move into remote. And Jenny, I see your question. The dashboard is up and running on the website. Maybe Winna, you might be able to put it in the chat for people to be able to access.
Absolutely. I'll share that link. You can also just go to dpsk12.org and it's right there on the homepage. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, as always, feel free to follow up with me at Winna_McLaren at dpsk12.org or text or call 303-204-7891. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, everyone.